Okay, today we're talking about IRAs and how IRAs are different. And then the first thing is you're going to say, well, different than what? Well, they're different than your other money. Okay, and I just kind of fired up about this today. I'm just coming back from, I've been at Ed Slott's Elite IRA group. This is the manual that we use over a 2 to 3 day seminar, and we do those twice a year. And Ed Slott is America's IRA expert. You can find his stuff. You can follow him on public television. I'm one of his groupies that has been with him 10 years now, where I go twice a year and I'm trained by him on the intricacies of IRAs. And say, well, why would I put so much of an emphasis on that? This is what America has. This is where America has their money right now. And I focus of my planning is on people, let's just say 55 to 75, with a lot of them right around 65, and they've accumulated money in this thing called a 401k, or they've rolled it over into an IRA or a 403b, or somehow they have this hunk of money, and it hasn't dawned on a lot of people, they've never paid taxes on that, but they're going to. Or if they're successful in just parlaying along and avoiding the taxes, their heirs or their children are going to pay taxes, maybe all at once. That's why he describes it as the black hole of estate planning. So this document that I'm working on, I've been looking at for 10 years, and Ed Slott has it every time in the manual. I read it at the beginning of the meeting. He puts the same memo out, but it's not static. These things change in number, and then the individual, so it's flowing over time, but I put numbers behind them. There's 20 things or 20 items that make your IRA different. And it's just a unique way to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it today. So an IRA has to have a beneficiary, or it's not an IRA, and a 401k. And when you die, it doesn't matter what the will says. That IRA is going to be paid out to whoever's named on there. And that's just different than your money that you have in a brokerage account or a bank account. That's going to be put into your estate, go to the other account holder. I mean, it's going to go through, it's going to be passing through your will. An IRA is by contract. IRAs have required minimum distributions, RMDs, which means that the money sits there and it can grow, it can retreat a bit, it can grow, and you don't have to take any of it out until you're 72. That used to be 70 and a half, and under the Secure Act, they changed it. They're talking about moving it to 75, but anyhow, once you reach age 72, you've got to take money out of there every year and pay taxes on it. So the IRS is saying you've avoided the taxes this long, it's time you're now retired at 72. And every year, and as you get older and older, that becomes a larger percentage. There are complex distribution rules during your lifetime, and then after your lifetime, when this stuff gets passed on. And a whole lifetime of work can be eaten up with some bad decisions on the part of your kids or your spouse or whoever is the beneficiary if there isn't a plan in place for them and they don't understand what's coming and they don't understand the tax implications of it. IRAs are highly taxed upon death or withdrawal. So it's at the highest rates. And if your heirs want to get any piece of the money that they've just inherited by beneficiary, they're going to have to pay a bunch of tax. And a lot of them just end up cleaning it all out, paying the tax all in one shot. Now, there's some ways to spread that out. But unfortunately, when people inherit money at middle age or a little past middle age, they need the money for things like education of their kids, retirement, that sort of thing. There's no step up in basis with an IRA, so when you die, there's no tax exemptions on what you put in and what you didn't put in. And we're speaking near of traditional IRAs, we're not talking about Roths. So Roths is a whole different meeting. We're talking about the kind where you've not paid tax on money yet. Investment gains are taxed as ordinary income. So not only is the principal that you put in there, but the gains on that principal, when you're pulling it out, it's all at ordinary income tax rates, which can be as high as the high 30s. IRAs cannot be gifted or transferred during lifetime. So you can't give your IRA to your spouse, to your children. It has to remain in your name for your entire life. And then it can only, when you pass, that it goes by beneficiary to someone else. And there's even some lawyers, when they're doing trusts, that don't understand this. And it has to stay in your name. Now, there's a couple exceptions to that, is you can make a gift to a charity. It's called a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution. You need to be over 70 and a half, but you can do your donating or your charitable through your IRA and not pay any tax on it. So that's something we can talk about separately. And it's also by a court-ordered transfer as part of a divorce agreement. So when two people are divorced, the other spouse, by court order, can receive a portion of your IRA. It's not going to be taxed. It just gets rolled over and set up in a different account. IRAs cannot change ownership during lifetime. If you try to change the owner of the IRA from yourself, or somebody does it for you, it's going to trigger an immediate tax, and just basically the tax shelter is going to be lost. They cannot be jointly owned like other property, even in a community property state. I have a lot of people that don't really understand that this is not a husband and wife kind of a thing, where if this is in the husband's name, this is his IRA. If she has IRA money, this is in her name, and it's separate. Now, they may be the beneficiaries of each other, and so it's not like they're not a party to it, but it can only be in one name, and it has to stay there for the whole lifetime. The choice of IRA beneficiary determines the potential value to the beneficiary. So a spouse is going to receive the most favorable. Then you have this designated beneficiary, and then you have regular beneficiaries, which is everybody else. And they can do different strategies tax-wise. That's what I study at Ed Slott. So trusts named as IRA beneficiaries must qualify under specific IRA rules. So it's not as simple as saying, okay, the beneficiary is a trust, and then I'm going to write into the trust how I want my money, what was my money, distributed. Okay, so you can do that, but you better have the right kind of trust. That's a whole nother area that we study, and we can get you to specific attorneys if you want to manage your inheritance that you leave from the grave, and to put out things. There's a way to do that, but it better meet the regulations. And you don't have to do that with your other money. You could just leave it to who you want. They can kind of do what they want with it once they receive it. No separate accounts for trusts as IRA beneficiaries. IRA beneficiaries may qualify for special tax breaks that are often missed. Just as we were preparing for this, I sat down with one of the young ladies that works here in my office, and I run this stuff by them, and she just completely unaware of that. And if you think about it, somebody's parent has just passed away, and the first money that's paid out, because it's paid by contract or by beneficiary, is usually the IRA. I mean, I handle this stuff all the time, and the kids are in there. This is the first money that they're going to get of their inheritance, and guess what? They want it, and they don't typically worry too much about the tax consequences. She asked me, are you required to tell them this? And I said, well, not really, but I do, and I always try to, but a lot of times I just get shut down. They just want to know, how much is the tax? How much will I get after I pay the tax? And when I give them that number, they say, send me a check. We just write to the custodian and do it. IRAs have no principal and income concept, so they don't have different types of money within the account. It's all pre-tax, and they don't really care how much was a contribution and how much was a gain on the contribution. It's just a whole bunch of money, and when anything comes out, it's taxed at ordinary rates. And IRAs require their own estate plans. So that's why it's really important as we sit down and look at the whole IRA money and then try to estimate what's going to be left in the IRA, and then manage the beneficiary and think about the implications of that. And then we're going to integrate that in the entire estate plan. So they need to be separate but integrated. So the whole gist of this is that by studying this, for many of our retiring clients, this is the majority of the money they have. And so, and frankly, if we have a lot of people that don't do planning, I mean, they just kind of get into retirement. I got X amount of money in my 401k, or I rolled it into an IRA, and they're really focused on the investment. And then they start Social Security whenever they start it, and they just pull money out as needed. And, you know, you can do that and probably be all right through your 60s and 70s. But this IRA planning and retirement planning, what I always tell people, is about the 80s and the 90s. And there's a pretty good chance with a married couple that one of you is going to live into your 90s, or certainly your late 80s. And it's a really sad thing if people start running out of money when they get, you know, when they get up there in years. And I think that's not going to happen. If you're sure you're going to be gone by your 70, you don't need to worry, because if you start taking money out, you're 65 now, and you don't think you're going to make it past 80, well, then you can spend in a certain way. When you do proper planning and proper tax planning, it's going to allow you to utilize more of the money during your lifetime. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish. And you got to pay taxes on it. There's a whole lot of strategies that we can use with this whole money to get you your money to live on first, but then to think about minimizing the taxes over a lifetime to leave something that's after tax to your beneficiaries. So I'm Hans Scheil, and I thank you for listening.